The people history remembers most vividly are rarely the ones who stayed the longest in the room. They're the ones who left before anyone was ready and never bothered to explain why. Sit with that for a second. You can spend years standing in front of someone, saying the right things, showing up every single time they call, and still be forgotten within a month of walking away. Meanwhile, someone else can vanish after one conversation and live rent-free in that same person's head for years. That doesn't seem fair. It isn't supposed to feel fair. It's just how attention actually works. And once you understand the mechanism behind it, you will never look at presence or your own constant availability the same way again. Because most people are optimizing for the wrong thing. They think being remembered means being seen more. The truth is the opposite. It means being seen less, but with far more intention. The second you understand that difference, you stop competing for attention and start directing it. Here's an image to hold on to, because it explains almost everything that follows. Stare into a bright light. Close your eyes. The light is gone, but its shape is still burned into the inside of your eyelids. That afterimage isn't the light. It's what your mind manufactures once the light disappears. People work the same way. The ones who burn brightest in memory aren't always the ones who stayed lit the longest. They're the ones who left an afterimage. Start with the mechanism that makes constant presence quietly work against you. The brain is a prediction machine. Its whole job is to flag what's new and delete what's routine. This is called habituation, and it governs everything. A ticking clock, traffic noise, a person who is always predictably there. The first time someone shows up fully present and attentive, your brain takes notice. By the 10th time, it barely registers, not because that person became less valuable, because your brain stopped tagging them as information worth keeping. Picture an employee who answers every email in minutes, arrives before everyone else, leaves after them, and never says no. For the first few months, they're irreplaceable. By year 2, they're furniture, not because their skill dropped, but because their presence became background noise. The brain learned to tune out. That's the trap of constant availability. It doesn't build value, it erodes visibility. And here's the cruel part. Most people respond to being ignored by doing more of the exact thing that got them ignored. They show up harder. They reach out more. And the brain, doing exactly what it's built to do, filters them out faster. But presence isn't the only currency here. There's a second stranger law at work, and it's about what your mind does with things left unresolved. Psychologists call it the Zeigarnik effect. The mind holds on to unfinished things far harder than it holds on to finished ones. A song that cuts off before the last note. A sentence that trails into nothing. A conversation that ends mid-thought. Your brain doesn't file these away. It keeps a tab open, quietly waiting for a resolution that never comes. Now apply that to a person. Someone who is fully known, fully explained, fully accounted for. There's nothing left for your mind to chew on. But someone who exits before the story wraps up, your brain treats them like an open case file. It keeps circling back, trying to close a loop that was never designed to close. It's part of why an anonymous street artist, working under a fake name, became one of the most talked about figures in contemporary art.
Not in spite of the anonymity, but because of it. No face, no full story, no ending. The public did what the mind always does with a loose thread. It kept coming back, filling the silence with fascination. Here's what almost nobody understands about disappearing. It was never really about leaving. It's about triggering scarcity. You already know scarcity raises value. A limited release sells out. The identical product sitting on a shelf all year doesn't move. What most people miss is that this law hits human attention even harder than it hits objects. Picture two friends. One replies within seconds, always free, always agreeable, always available on short notice. The other takes hours to answer, clearly has a full life outside of you, and isn't reachable on demand. Which one do you actually think about more? Whose silence has you checking your phone? Scarcity doesn't mean being cold. It means your time isn't infinite. And the moment people sense they can't have unlimited access to you, the access they do get starts to matter far more than it used to. Here's the blunt truth underneath all of it. The world doesn't remember what stayed. It remembers what it lost. That reframes everything. You're not trying to be the most present person in someone's life. You're trying to be the presence whose absence gets noticed. Which brings us back to the afterimage. Withdrawal done with intention doesn't erase you from someone's memory. It projects you onto it. Emily Dickinson spent the last decades of her life almost entirely out of public view, rarely leaving the family home, rarely meeting visitors in person. She didn't build her legacy through appearances. She became one of the most enduring figures in American literature, partly because of what her absence did to everyone's imagination. The mystery of the woman behind the door became fused with the power of the words she left behind. Her withdrawal wasn't emptiness. It was a canvas other people's curiosity kept filling in. She's not the only proof. Decades later, one of the most photographed actresses of her era walked away from film at the peak of her fame, retreated almost completely from public life, and spent the rest of her years avoiding cameras and interviews, the very attention that had once defined her. She could have faded quietly. Instead, her absence became more famous than most people's presence ever manages to be. A single phrase she was once associated with, about wanting to be alone, outlived entire filmographies of actresses who never stopped showing up. A poet and an actress, arriving at the same law from two completely different directions. What you withhold outlives what you display. But, and this is the part that separates real influence from a cheap trick, disappearing only works if there was something worth missing in the first place. If you contributed nothing, said nothing memorable, gave nothing of substance, and then you vanish, nobody opens a file on you, because there was never a file to open. The vacuum only pulls at the mind if something real used to occupy that space. This is why withdrawal as a manipulation tactic, deployed by someone who has nothing else to offer, almost always falls apart. People feel the emptiness behind it within days. Real disappearance works like a photograph developing in a darkroom. The image has to already be there, latent, before the absence can bring it into focus. You don't create value by vanishing. You reveal value that was already there by finally letting someone feel it missing. So the order matters. First, you show up fully, present, engaged, generous, genuinely valuable in the moments you choose to be there. That's what exposes the light in the first place. Only then does withdrawal do its work, because now there's an afterimage worth leaving. Skip the first step, and disappearing just makes you forgettable in a different way. Do both, in order, and you become something rarer. A person the mind can't stop quietly circling back to, long after you've left the room. There's one last piece almost nobody talks about, and it's what separates people who use this instinctively from people who accidentally destroy it. Absence only has power because it eventually ends. A lighthouse doesn't work by staying lit every second. If it did, it would just be background glow. Another fixture on the coastline. Exactly the kind of constant presence your brain learns to ignore. It works because the light disappears into the dark and then cuts back through it, again and again. It's the return that makes each flash count. You work the same way. If you disappear and never come back, you're not mysterious. You're just gone. And eventually, even an open file closes on its own. The mind stops waiting after enough silence and moves on to something it can actually resolve. The comeback has to land while the thread is still warm. Too soon, and you look needy. The scarcity you built collapses instantly. Too late.
And the file closes without you, quietly, and you never even find out it happened. The people who master this, who treat disappearing as a real skill instead of a wound they're nursing, feel the timing instinctively. They come back without an explanation or an apology. Just present again, as if the absence never needed justifying. That, more than the leaving itself, is what makes the whole pattern feel like magnetism instead of a mind game. Think about the last person who left a mark on you that you couldn't quite explain. Chances are it wasn't the one who never left your side, it was the one who mattered, and then wasn't there anymore. You never got to finish the story with them,
So some part of you, even now, is still trying to close that loop. That unfinished quality isn't a flaw in how memory works, it's the exact mechanism by which certain people become impossible to forget, while everyone else, who stayed, who explained everything, who left nothing to the imagination, quietly fades into the background noise of a life. You don't become unforgettable by never leaving. You become unforgettable by knowing exactly when to go.